So I want to step back to November 1977 and an experience I would have liked to have had but didn't at the time. I'm looking through Byte magazine, the November 1977 edition, and I come across this full-page ad. And it's for this thing called the Apple II, and I read through this, and it's a complete computer. It's got 15 colors, 8K of ROM, 4K of RAM, can be expanded to 48K. It's got a basic it comes with, typewriter style keyboard. It uses your TV or a video monitor. It can play games. It's just like, wow, this looks really amazing. As I look at the specifications, it's a 1 megahertz 6502, nice. Memory mapped 5 mode, all software selectable. Text 40 characters aligned, 24 lines uppercase. Okay, I get that. Color graphics 40 horizontal times 48 vertical, 15 color. Okay. High resolution graphics 280 horizontal by 192 vertical, black, white, violet, green. 12K RAM minimum required. Both graphic modes can be selected to include 4 lines of text at the bottom of the display. That sounds amazing. Completely transparent memory access. Okay, up to 48K bytes onboard RAM. Uses either 4K or the new 16K dynamic RAMs. Up to 12K of ROM. It's got 8K supplied. Fast extended integer basic and ROM with color graphic commands. Extensive monitor and ROM. 1500 bits per second cassette interface. 8-slot motherboard. Wow. Game connector, ASCII keyboard port, speaker and composite video output. But what really catches my eye is Apple II is also available in board-only form for the do-it-yourself hobbyist. Oh, it's $600. But the system starts at $1,300. I can't afford either one. But maybe I can afford the board. So, wow, that seems amazing. So I keep reading through the magazine, and I get towards the back, and I find this. Apple II features built-in color capability. Didn't I just look at this? Apple II is Apple Computer's entry in the home computer market. The unit uses the MOS Technologies 6502 processor and can display alphanumeric and video characters in 15 colors using any standard color television set. I have a black and white TV, but we'll think about that later. A basic language package is permanently stored in 6K bytes to read-only memory. Execution speed is fast enough to run many video games. Integer basic includes special function to deal with color video. Kind of hits some of the same kind of stuff. Comes complete with a switching power supply. Again, they're talking about the whole unit. It's also available in board-only form without case, keyboard, power supply, or accessories for $598. And it says Circle 512 on the inquiry card. So some of you may know what an inquiry card is. Many of you may not. So back in the day when a magazine came like Byte, it would be delivered in your mail. You get home from school or work or wherever, and your new Byte's there, and you'd sit down and, boy, you'd just start going through it and wishing you could afford all the cool stuff you saw in it. And you would get to a section in the magazine where there'd be a bunch of these little blurbs like this, and they would all say circle a number on the inquiry card. And someplace bound in the magazine would be a postcard. And you'd pop it out of the magazine, and it would have a sea of numbers on the back and an address on the front to where you mailed it to. And as you looked at these little things, you'd say, I'm interested in 512. So you'd circle 512 on the card. And you'd read something else and go, that's cool. Circle 516, and you'd circle 516, and you'd circle the numbers on the postal card that you were interested in. You'd throw a stamp on it, and you'd mail it back to Byte Magazine or whoever was processing the cards. And they would take the card, and they would make the contacts for you to Byte or whoever, or maybe even themselves provide you the information for the numbers that you had, circled. So I get my package. Whatever it looked like. I wish I could find it on the web. I can't. But, I get some information. I become really interested, and I decide, I'm going to take the plunge, and I'm going to spend the $600 and begin the journey of building the machine. Now, the reality is my dad co-signed for a loan back then for about $600, so I could afford a Radio Shack Model 1. But in this scenario, we're going to pretend I bought the board and go from there. So, it looks pretty cool. My board has arrived. Wow, this is amazing. Look at how gorgeous this is. So this is a reproduction Apple II Rev 0 board. I've had this for quite some time. You may have seen it in a previous video way back when. I've had a couple different viewers ask if I was ever going to build this board, and I've said yes. It's slated to be built at some point. I need the parts. I assume from Apple it came with some kind of an assembly manual. I have not found that manual anyplace. But what I have found is Mike Willigau, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Mike, who designed this replica board, I found his instructions on assembling and bringing it up. So we'll use that to assemble and bring up the board. And I've also found some errata stuff here about like transistor orientation. There's several things here. The original transistors were in a TO106, which is a metal can package, and what's supplied may be a TO92, which is a plastic package, and the pinouts are different. So the flat here doesn't necessarily mean the flat on the transistor. So there's notes like that. So I've been collecting parts to build this thing. I've managed to acquire a set of Apple basic ROMs with the monitor ROM. This isn't the integer basic. This is the full basic. These came from a damaged board. So way back we did a video together where I took an unrecoverable Apple II board, and having never really used an Apple II in my life, besides a little, I touched them a little bit back in the 80s, just a little bit. Received that board that I got on eBay that was unrepairable, and we repaired it and we got it running again. And one of the things we did in that series was we placed the original ROMs on that board with 2716 EPROMs, and we modified the board and we picked up a control signal we needed by an edge connector, etc. But we were able to get 2716s working on that board. And on that board was a set of ROMs. One of the reasons I bought that board is it had a set of ROMs. However, this F0 ROM had really been mistreated, and 3 of the pins were broke. I was able to tack on pins, and that's why it sits in this socket. It's permanently in this socket. It's the carrier for this ROM. In our build, ROM F0, which is here, will sit higher than everybody else because it'll be double socketed. It just is what it is. But we have a set of ROMs for the board we've managed to acquire. We have another Apple ROM here labeled S-Care. I suspect that's a character generator ROM, but I don't know that. I'll have to fish for this part number 3410063. And there's another Apple ROM here from 82. C19663, I don't know. Maybe it's another character generator ROM, maybe it's something else. But I've acquired those. And we're going to continue the story here as we introduce this. Janeco.com, I'm very sure existed back in this era. I was ordering electronics from some mail order house, and I want to say it was Janeco was my go-to at the time. And so in this story I'm making up here as we go along, I have looked in the back of Byte magazines and Popular Electronics and the various magazines I got in the back, and there's all kinds of ads from all kinds of people for parts. And I have collected the parts over time to build this, and as I mowed lawns to be able to afford it. And I've collected all the logic we need. And I've got 24 4116 DRAMs. These are, they look like they're MCM. They look like they're Motorola parts. They are very close to age appropriate. These are 1983, so they're a little newer than I would like, but you take what you can get in the modern era. There is a 65CO2 that looks like it's actually much newer. I think, got an era-specific 6502 that'll work on this. There's actually a General Instruments RO32513 CGR-001. This is a character generator ROM. So the Apple I and Apple II used a standard character generator ROM, and this is one of those. And its date code is in 82. So again, not as early as I'd like, but very close. And then there's just a bunch of TTL logic. And I haven't looked close at these, but I'm sure I know that the date codes are going to be as close to the era as possible. So this should represent all the logic I need, the memory I need, the processor and character generator, and we've got the ROMs that we've acquired. So that should be all the logic I believe we're going to need to build this system up. So I've made the plunge, and I've bought high quality machine pin sockets. Just what the heck, let's just go all the way with this and build it as nice as we can. And this should hopefully be the complete set of, I didn't cut that as well as I would have liked, sockets that we need to build everything. So we've got what look like, those all look like 16 pin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a lot of 16 pin sockets. We've got some, I don't know if those are 14 or 16s. Those look like 14s. Those look like 14s. These look like 24 for the ROMs. There's the 40 ROM and character generator, but we're going to use all machine pin sockets, higher quality sockets. So we're going to get a really nice build with this. It should be nice and reliable. I honestly could have afforded these sockets back in the day. I'd have been buying the cheapest stuff I could have. That was then, this is now. So I believe we have all the sockets we're going to need. Pretty nice. Things are organized pretty well here. We've got a crystal for it and some transistors and what I believe is an inductor and a diode. All required components. Well, that didn't work so well. Oh, it's sealed. These bags were sealed. So I ordered a parts kit. I'll admit to it. I found a parts kit and I went ahead and ordered it. And it was not inexpensive, but I went, what the heck? There's about 2,000 solder joints on this board. So we're not going to build this in a single video or two. What I want to look at is the frequency on the crystal. So it is 14.31818. It is the correct crystal, I believe, or very, very close to it. So they have very carefully packaged everything and sealed everything, which is actually much appreciated. Let's go ahead and get into this bag and take a look at the parts we're going to use here. There's quite a bit of stuff in here. There's the video connector, and I already recognize that. That's the right connector for back there. There is the male power supply connector that goes on the board. As we decide how we're going to power this thing, we may or may not use this. There's the cassette connectors. Those look correct. There are the memory configuration jumpers. So there's 3 memory select spots here that a header goes down into, and you can wire it for either 4K RAMs or 16K RAMs. We'll be wiring for 16K RAMs. So there's the headers that you put the wires in, and then there's the covers for them. And on the original Apple IIs, you would see 16K, printed or 4K printed on these. I will just make my own labels to put on them to kind of indicate what they are. But that's very nice. That's very nice to have all of that. That seems complete. that video, or that connector for the video. The RCA connector looks good. It's not all corroded. Who knows the age it is. One of the things that the vendor I bought this from said is they would try to use, they would try to, package as period appropriate parts as they could. I'll just give them a shout out. It was Unicorn Electronics. I think it's unicorn.com or unicorn-electronics.com. If you've never been to the Unicorn website, search for Unicorn Electronics, and you will find a downloadable PDF of their catalog. And it's, at least for me, it's fun to read through. It takes me right back to this era of my catalog came in the mail, my Jameco catalog's here, my whoever catalog is here. And it's time to jump in and, and see the cool things that I can maybe afford. And a bunch of disc capacitors here. They're labeled. There's a trimmer for, I believe, the video. And a bunch of fixed. Very nice. There's a resistor, a pot. There's a bunch of fixed resistors and a resistor array. And again, they're all labeled very well. I didn't realize they were going to be labeled like this. I just thought it would be a bunch of parts dropped in a box. So to whoever sourced this and labeled all of these, big thank you. I know I bugged you an email about where's my order. I didn't realize you may have actually put this together after I placed the order. I don't know, but whoever went through the work of packaging this way, thank you. Very nice job. We have the edge connectors for the expansion slots. These look like the exact ones they should be. They've got the ears on them. They're green. In my mind, these are the correct ones for a Rev Zero board. I've got some I could use that are black and they don't have the ears and they're just not as authentic. But, those are awesome. That really gets us through everything I've got in the box. So we've got all of the components here as a kit from Unicorn Electronics. We've got the Apple II Rev Zero PCB that I picked up on eBay. I don't know, 2 years ago? No, it was way before COVID. 4 years ago? 5 years ago? I'd have to go look at when I did those Apple II videos. That was way before, the last 2+ years. To get an idea of when I ordered this and kind of when I planned this, I've always been in awe of the design of this system. There's just some elegance to it. Woz definitely is in this board. The way he thinks, the way he does things. I've mentioned in many videos, I'll mention again, I met Woz in 2006, maybe, at the Vintage Computer Fest West down in Mountain View, California, at the Vintage Computer Museum. There's a computer museum, CMS, CSM. There's a computer museum down in California in Mountain View, I believe. That's a really large, really nice facility, and it was Apple's probably 30th anniversary, and he showed up, and I've got a picture with him, and shook hands, and we both had our geek Nixie Tube watches on, and we geeked out on the fact that we both had a Nixie Tube watch, and we talked for a couple of minutes, and he signed stuff, and he was just this extremely nice, he never stopped smiling human being, and I got the absolute vibe of just a compassionate, intelligent, wonderful human being there. He spent time with a ton of people. It was just an amazing experience. A truly interesting person. So those of you that have been looking at the board may have noticed it's missing the Apple logo up here. So on the real board, it's Apple Computers. It's got a silkscreen logo up here. These don't have that. I think that's one of the ways of basically stating this is not an original. Yeah, and see, it's got his website back here.com, www.willigill.ne. The guy who designed this board, boy, this board's been banging around in my stuff for ages. It needs a good cleaning. it actually got taken downstairs to the main computer area at some point, and I didn't realize it got stacked under some boxes. And then the boxes were moved onto the floor, and this is actually set on the floor under some boxes, which is really kind of sad, but it is what it is. As I think about building this, all of the resistors are marked in the silkscreen for values. I believe those are all correct. The pot obviously goes here. We'll have to verify that that transistor outline is correct. That is, I believe, the video driver in the end and the video level set from the pot. It's got the pin headers here, as I understand, that can go to an RF modulator. FCC rules didn't allow them to put an RF modulator on this board at the time. The fact that there's no RF shielding on this at all really speaks to the era, and very quickly after, during this time, the FCC rules really hit, and you got extremely shielded machines like the Atari 800 with the cast aluminum internals. And then the rules were lightened back up, and you get down to the stamped sheet metal RF shields. But I believe there was no RF shielding for this at all. But they weren't allowed to put an RF modulator on it because of interference it would create. You could buy a third-party board or module that set in the computer that picked up power, etc., and video, and created an RF modulated output for you to connect to your TV. Things I didn't necessarily see in that quick pass-through that are probably there was the speaker connector. We saw the memory select jumpers and covers. The power connectors there will decide when we get to that point whether we use it or I use a different switching power supply to power the system. Back then I would have probably had to have built a linear power supply. That would have been an undertaking at that time. My plan for this, once it's working, is to probably put the Color Killer mod on it. It can be added down here. There's several mods that were done to the Rev Zero board over time, and we may implement some of those, we may not. But anyhow, this is just meant to be an introduction video to what we have here, what we're going to build. Thank you to Mike for making this stuff available and still having it up on the website. I don't think he's producing these boards anymore. I could be wrong. But, his little assembly manual looks pretty decent here. Definitely, the parts. He's got a power-up procedure, how to bring it up a section at a time. I think he starts with video. There's when I was talking about the memory select sockets, the three over here with the jumpers. I'll be wiring for 16K here. So I believe that becomes, it's labeled down here, pin 14 to 10, 13 to 9, 12 to 8. And something that's going to be hard for me to keep in mind is pin 1 on all these devices. The notch is down. I'm so used to thinking about the notch being up. So all the packages to me are rotated 180 from how I normally think. And I guess, honestly, I could do this, but now the silk screens are upside down. So it's just, I've got to just rethink and be careful. Some discussion of the board, some of the unexpected, or some of the things that were found when the person, there's actually a dialogue set in here when the system was built. There's some discussion about this user 1 jumper, which is interesting, errors in schematics. Then I think this starts kit builder's feedback, and there's a couple of things in here. So there's the kit, as apparently Dave sold it. I don't know who Dave is in this case. It's not Mike, but there was a kit that was sold. It's very similar to what we have here. We don't have necessarily that manual with that cover, but I think that's actually this assembly and bring up guide. I don't know that. And there's just a couple things in here. He had issues with the clock not running, and that's because the two N3906s that were provided were in a TO92 package and not the metal can package, the top hat package. And once he got them in the correct orientation, the clock came to life. And finally, the system up and running with Escape from the Homebrew Computer Club, whatever that, Looks like a mini Doom clone to me. So anyhow, I've rambled on here for at least 20 minutes. Let's wrap this one up. There'll be probably a number of videos on this. I don't know how many it'll take, but we will work through this together and see if we can bring this guy up and have some fun with an Apple II Rev Zero. Hope to see you in those videos, and we'll talk soon.